Hi, Coach Grimes here. Today we're going to do something a little differently. In the past, we've been doing little snippets focusing on one aspect of your game. And that's fine, but I wanted to do a series where we do a little deeper dive and look at matches in more detail. As always, these videos are designed to help us learn and improve, not to embarrass or overly criticize anyone. Today we're going to look at a match between Elizabeth Hernandez of Kofa and Ruby Barragan of Gila Ridge. So Elizza is serving on the far side of the court, and the thing I want you to notice right away is that she is serving with a forehand grip. So you might say, hey, it's going in, so no harm, no foul, right? Well, there are several problems with serving with a forehand grip. The first is the quality of the serve that you can hit with that grip. So in this next serve, I want you to notice the speed of the ball, where it lands in the box, and how much it sits up. So as you see, the ball sat up nice and high, and Ruby nails it. This brings up the second problem with serving with a forehand grip, and that is consistency. Because of the angle of the racket in a forehand grip, the only way to control whether or not it goes in is by varying the speed. Hit the ball too hard, and it goes long. Too soft, and it goes into the net. The reason is that the racket face is open on contact, and there is no way to impart topspin on the ball with the racket in that position. There are not many things that are universal in tennis. For every technique a tennis pro comes up with, someone on a pro circuit will break that rule and be successful with it. This is not one of those. I challenge you to find one pro player who serves with a forehand grip. So I am confident in saying the only way to serve consistent and quality serves is with a continental grip. To illustrate this, let's look at Ruby, who also serves with a forehand grip. Notice how her racket is pointed almost straight to the sky. This is the dreaded frying pan position that us coaches are always talking about. Let's move it forward from here in slow motion so we can see how she makes contact. Looking close up and in slow motion, we see that the ball is coming down to the racket as much as the racket is going to the ball. What we can't see is she's decelerating her arm swing so that she doesn't hit it out. Stopping it here, we can see that her racket face is still open at contact, meaning she has to practically tap it in order to get it in. She is fortunate that no one at this level has the weapons to attack the ball. But Ruby is a junior and will have to play varsity next year. Let's see what Elizza does with this serve. So as we can see, Elizza, who's only been playing tennis for about 2 weeks at this point, is able to push Ruby back on her heels with this ball. Elizza starts out ahead at this point, but loses the momentum. And this brings us to our next point, movement. So as stated, Elizza starts out in a good position on this point by virtue of a return or serve. She gets another good shot, pulling Ruby wide, but then she stops. Now, Elizza's a pretty quick player, but once she stops moving her feet, she can't get going fast enough to get to the ball and pushes it long. In elementary physics, you probably learned Newton's first law of motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion. This is true in tennis as well. Your feet should not stop moving until the ball lands out. Let's look at the best example of movement in the history of tennis. So I often show this video to beginning players, and they all say the same thing. But coach, he's Roger Federer. We can't move like Federer. And I always say the same thing. I will never be able to move like Roger Federer. But I can move as much as Roger Federer. Because movement is a choice. You can choose to move, or you can choose to not move. When you're not hitting the ball, you're recovering. When you're not recovering, you're bouncing. When you're not bouncing, you're split stepping in time to your opponents making contact with the ball. This is not from a practice session. This is an actual match that Federer played at Indian Wells. I want you to watch the rest of this video and note when Federer stops moving his feet. Of course, it's a trick question because he never stops moving his feet while the point is still going on. There are times when I tell players to move dynamically, and they tell me they don't know what I mean. This is what I mean by moving dynamically. So let's look at a little more of the match and see what's going on. So I like the fact that she shuffles to recover after she serves, because it shows that she has the right mindset on movement. She just needs to get to the point where she doesn't stand still once she gets to her destination. Now she's got a couple of forehands coming up here, and what I want to point out is that you want to use the wrist when you hit that forehand. She gets that one in, but the next one she's going to push long, I believe, because there's no wrist action, and so she's not imparting spin on the ball. Now, don't want to be too hard here. She's a beginning player. This is just to reinforce some of the things that we've already talked about. So here she whips a forehand. Could happen to anybody, don't worry about it. So I want to say a little bit about this crouch that I see a lot of the beginning players do. That really doesn't help you at all. The ball is only 3 ounces, so there's really no reason for extra momentum to get it into the air. Sports psychologist Dr. Alan Fox often says, don't do anything that doesn't help you win, and this is an example of something that is not going to help you win. So let's talk about serve position. I see a lot of beginning players do this as well. They will stand over in the corner because they think that it gives them a better angle. They think it's longer that way, and technically from corner to corner it is a longer distance, but it is also much more narrow in that corner. So it really doesn't give you an advantage when you're serving. And in fact, it leaves you very vulnerable to the down the line shot. By the way, this last point shows how quick Elizza is. She was out of position, and Ruby hit a nice shot in the corner, but Elizza almost ran that ball down. So when she improves her footwork, she's going to be very effective on the court. Again, she stops moving her feet here and is unable to get to the ball. And I know she says to herself, I'm fast, why can't I get to these balls? But it's all footwork. So the final thing we'll talk about is psychological. Elizza is a very expressive young lady, and you know everything that she's thinking, if she's angry, if she's sad, if she's tired, and you don't want to really wear your emotions on your sleeve because you don't want to give your opponent any kind of advantage. So to wrap up, learn to serve with a continental grip. I can say with confidence that no one will ever be consistent and effective with a forehand grip serve. Second, keep your feet moving from the time the serve is struck until the ball lands out. It is much too difficult to go from a standing position, run down a ball, and make good contact. And finally, learn to impart topspin on both your forehand and backhand. You'll be able to drive your ball with more pace, make it land deeper in the court, and be more consistent. As always, I invite players and coaches to leave your opinions in the comment section. If there is a particular match that you know is recorded and you want me to review, let me know. Stay in touch, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.